Welcome to the Toronto Conference on Applying Education. Let me introduce myself. I am Tatiana P. Nekrep, a professor at the Secondary Construction School and Gymnasium in Maribor, Slovenia, and the owner and the caretaker of a beautiful ornamental garden around an old villa, which serves as a unique outdoor classroom. In this presentation, we will explore the vital role of gardens in combating the new ignorance. We will discuss the consequences of limited contact with nature and the notion of new ignorance, the educational potential of gardens, and the e-garden network. Additionally, we will present a specific example of a sensory garden, Villa and Garden Nekrep, which offers experiential learning for people of all ages. Have you ever noticed how children and adolescents today are extremely dependent on electronic devices? Unfortunately, this means a lot less genuine contact with nature. Recent research has shown that younger generations are distanced from natural phenomena more than ever. This phenomenon is called the new ignorance, a significant lack of direct physical and sensory contact with the environment around us. But don't worry, there is a solution. Today, we want to shed some light on the role of gardens in education. Educational gardens allow for experiential learning, in which children can gain knowledge using all their senses. Not only that, but they also help to develop emotional competencies and personality traits in individuals. This is why educational gardens are becoming increasingly important in bridging the gap between young people and nature's processes. In addition to theoretical views, we want to present some practical experiences. One specific example is eGarden, a network of educational and residential gardens that was developed as a result of the project On the Creative Path to Knowledge. Another is the sensory garden Nekrep, an ornamental living garden spread over 6,000 square meters next to a villa from 1904. Both the villa and the garden are alive with educational purposes and provide meeting places for different generations. Science days are held with school groups, and the educational learning process is heavily influenced by the experience of being in the garden. By including educational gardens in learning processes, it becomes possible to influence the motivation of young people and cut off the path of new ignorance. So the next time you're thinking of a way to get children and adolescents away from their electronic devices, remember that educational gardens are a great option. The lifestyle of people is changing as we have become increasingly dependent on electronic devices and feel powerless without constant internet connection. Smartphones guide our steps, both for children and adults. However, humans are inherently interdependent with nature. We rely on what Mother Earth provides for us, including vegetables, fruits, and grains that grow in gardens, rather than in shopping centers. When we need nourishment for our souls, we take in the intoxicating scent of roses and realize that we are living beings, only a fragment of a larger whole. Educational gardens are a topic that is gaining importance due to the growing awareness of the importance of living in harmony with nature, although they are not yet well researched in Slovenia. In this study, we present the facts that have been provided by various experts in this field through a review of the literature. Based on an analysis of documentation and observations through theoretical knowledge, we proceed to implement our own thinking based on experience. With climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the challenges posed by social changes, there is a growing awareness of the importance of a more harmonious coexistence between humans and nature. Young people who face many environmental and climate challenges require the right knowledge for a safe future. Nature needs to be felt and connected with. However, it seems that young people are becoming increasingly distant from authentic connections with nature, leading to what is called new ignorance. This article aims to show that experiential learning in gardens reduces this distance from nature. Our hypothesis is that gardens are an excellent educational tool, and by incorporating educational gardens into the learning process, we can influence the motivation of young people and break the path of this new ignorance. Over 3 centuries ago, Jean-Jacques Rousseau shook the educators and parents of his time with his thoughts on experiential learning. Rousseau wrote in his famous work Émile, or On Education, "Teach the youth more by actions than by words, and also to observe nature and follow its path." Professor at the University of Philipps, Peter Becker, cites a study published in Berlin in 2010 that caused quite a sensation. In a random check of 3,000 students aged 12 to 15, Only half knew that the sun rises in the east, and many thought that long-life milk came from long-lived cows or even bulls. It might be amusing to learn that deer are the wives of deer, that young deer are called Bambis, that walnuts grow on bushes, that chickens lay 3 eggs a day, and that roses don't have fruits. We don't have studies on how Slovenian children and adolescents answer similar questions. Can we dismiss the young people's answers as irrelevant nonsense? Or, on the other hand, should we seriously consider the causes and possible consequences? There seems to be ample evidence that engaging with nature promotes children's educational processes. It is essential for educators to examine the situation arising from the students' responses. What indicates children's lack of knowledge is primarily their distance from nature's phenomena and processes. If children don't know that walnuts grow on trees, they obviously have never seen their fingers turn brown when picking them. If they don't know that roses have fruits, they probably have never felt the itching caused by the tiny hairs in rosehip berries. This means that cognitive distance is often accompanied by the absence of direct physical and sensory contact. At the same time, we know that computer screens, mice, consoles, and smartphones dominate children's rooms. They guide children through a reflection of reality, which always remains just a reflection. The world that enters children's and adolescents' spaces through screens does not need to be explored and understood with the senses of touch, smell, hearing, and taste. Neither an autumn storm nor a spring breeze nor the sun and snow will leave an impression on the skin. If the basic anthropological assumption that exposure to collisions, friction, encounters, and other active contacts is necessary for advancing human developmental and educational processes is correct, it seems that in modern children's rooms, these sensory physical encounters with the world are reduced to cognitive visuals. Losing genuine contact with nature is most apparent among younger generations. Climbing trees or playing with peers in the yard seems foreign to children. We learn throughout our lives, but upbringing and shaping values are most important in childhood. A garden as an educational garden, as an outdoor classroom, enables an easier understanding of the curriculum, especially natural science content. At the same time, it gives students the opportunity to become acquainted with gardening skills and the importance of healthy, garden-grown vegetables, fruits, and herbs. Teaching in the garden encourages and develops critical thinking skills and interdisciplinary connections. The latter is crucial in helping students recognize the school-taught curriculum as life-applicable. It is becoming increasingly clear that we all need self-sufficiency skills, and that there is a generational gap in transferring such knowledge. Schools are centers of knowledge in every community. A sustainable school garden can be an important outdoor classroom for all generations of children and their parents. If ever, now during the COVID-19 pandemic, we need skills and knowledge on how to be self-sufficient, care for our well-being, and preserve nature. Sustainable school gardens can help us here, combining knowledge, experience, socializing, intergenerational transfers, and personal motivation. What is a garden and what is an educational garden? Surely each of us has a different idea of what a garden is. Images of gardens are closely intertwined with images of childhood that have left a deep imprint on us. According to some assumptions, the garden is the earliest form of human spatial organization. The garden is considered land enclosed by branches or stones for protection from outside nuisances. Historical records show that the garden was originally a smaller, organized piece of land where useful plants were grown, and water was purposefully used in the process. Over time, the garden became an important addition to the built dwelling. It surpassed its original utilitarian, cultivation purpose, and became a space for outdoor living. Ogren, 1993. Gardens have long shown the self-sufficiency of individual communities in the distant past. Globalization and its problems have strengthened the need to establish gardens that enable partial self-sufficiency and activate people to connect and exchange experiences. Thus, gardens have both a supply function and social, environmental, economic, and ethical traditional importance, which means they have sustainable dimensions. Rosman Kafuta, 2018. An educational garden is a newer term. In connection with gardens and outdoor education, phrases such as learning gardens, school gardens, outdoor classrooms, botanical gardens, historical gardens, arboretums, self-sufficient gardens, etc., are used. Regardless of the name, active experiential learning takes place in gardens. Young people become familiar with new knowledge using all their senses. The environment greatly influences the behavior and exploration of children in preschool, primary, and secondary school up to their entry into adulthood, not only in terms of acquiring knowledge, but also in terms of developing emotional competencies, individual personality traits, and motivation. The intrinsic motivation of students seems key to achieving good academic results. One study examined the relationship between intrinsic motivation as an active component of educational gardens by studying models and measurements from self-determination theory. As the model of this theory predicts, participation in the garden was strongly associated with their overall engagement in school. Students expressed their thoughts on acquiring knowledge in gardens, their gardening competencies, intrinsic motivation for gardening, and self-regulation in the garden. The sense of connection with the school, intrinsic motivation, perception, and orientation towards autonomy increased. Student involvement in the garden confirmed the connections between motivation and achievements in natural science subjects and general subjects. Findings confirm that outdoor teaching increases students' enthusiasm and interest in academic activities, while encouraging them to be more engaged in learning at school, strengthening their perception, and increasing their ability to manage thoughts, feelings, and actions to achieve goals. As part of the Creative Path to Knowledge project, students from 3 disciplines, architecture, geography, and computer science, collaborated. With the assistance of educational and professional mentors, they explored a portion of Slovenian gardens. They developed an informational online platform called Evert, a network of educational and residential gardens, www.evert.si. Apart from its natural beauty, Slovenia boasts many fascinating constructed garden environments, including arboretums, historical, and botanical gardens. Moreover, there is an abundance of decorative residential, collectors, and self-sufficient gardens. Their owners possess a wealth of knowledge, but this knowledge is often lost in intergenerational transfer. The educational potential of these gardens remains untapped, and it is crucial to pass this knowledge on to younger generations and the broader community. A database of Slovenian gardens is being created with information that can be used in the educational process at all levels, from kindergarten to university. Students and teachers will be motivated to visit gardens in their local areas where they can learn experientially about the wonders of nature. The decorative residential garden surrounding a family villa, a protected architectural heritage site from the early 20th century, spans an area of 6,000 square meters. The villa and garden form a living space with an educational purpose. The garden is classified as a sensory garden, as it awakens all the senses. Various intergenerational gatherings take place in the garden, ranging from school groups attending nature-themed events to charity and cultural meetings and groups from the Third Age University. The primary goals of the owners are to promote gardening culture, preserve nature and architectural heritage, transfer knowledge to younger generations, and foster connections. Conclusion. Daily experiences clearly show that children and adolescents are increasingly disconnected from genuine contact with nature. We aim to demonstrate that experiential learning in gardens can reduce this disconnect. By reviewing scientific literature, we explored the field of educational gardens. In recent years, several studies have been conducted on gardens, especially regarding the involvement of young people in school gardens. This new ignorance affects children, adolescents, and even adults. Due to the fast pace of life and limited opportunities for authentic interaction with nature, younger individuals often lack a proper understanding of plants and nature in general. Research has shown that actively engaging children in educational gardens improve their knowledge of nature. Studies also highlight the positive effects of active involvement of children and adolescents in educational gardens regarding developing emotional competencies and individual personality traits. Active participation in the garden fosters mental, emotional, social, and physical growth in children and adolescents. The term educational gardens is still gaining traction in the Slovenian context. It is an incredibly broad area that deserves more attention and should be systematically integrated into primary and secondary school curricula. Educational gardens are an excellent educational tool that promotes the development of various abilities in children and adolescents. Young people live in a demanding age dominated by technology. They will be better equipped to face the challenges of climate change if they have a deeper understanding of natural processes. One way to overcome the path of new ignorance is through garden visits. Gardens on school grounds or elsewhere are inviting spaces with countless possible activities. Growing food, intergenerational socializing, or calming down while listening to birds are just a few examples. A garden symbolizes the power of new life that emerges from a child. Let us connect the old and new knowledge and embrace the mission of teaching young generations to live responsibly with all living beings. Educational gardens can be a wonderful aid and a great pleasure in this endeavor. Thank you for your attention. See you in Slovenia.